Economic growth is often portrayed as the ultimate indicator of societal success. Politicians celebrate rising GDP as proof that a nation is thriving, and financial markets treat expansion as an unquestionable good. We are constantly told that our growing economy means better jobs, higher wages, and improved living standards. But beneath this narrative lies a dangerous assumption that infinite growth is both possible and desirable. In reality, the pursuit of endless economic expansion comes at a cost, one that is rarely acknowledged. Growth demands ever-increasing consumption, which means extracting more resources, producing more goods, and pushing people to work harder. It prioritizes short-term profits over long-term sustainability, rewarding companies that exploit labor and the environment. Yet despite decades of rising GDP, most people do not feel wealthier, healthier, or happier. Instead, they experience stagnating wages, increasing debt, and growing anxiety over job security. A deeper problem lies in the very structure of our economic system. Modern capitalism is built on a cycle of production and consumption that requires people to spend more each year just to keep the machine running. But while corporations and financial elites accumulate wealth, ordinary individuals find themselves trapped, working longer hours while struggling to afford basic necessities. This raises an uncomfortable question. If economic growth is supposed to improve life, why does it so often make things worse for the majority? One of the biggest myths about economic expansion is that it benefits everyone. In reality, the majority of wealth generated by growth is concentrated at the top, while the lower and middle classes see little improvement. The gap between rich and poor has widened dramatically in recent decades, with the richest 1% controlling an ever-increasing share of global wealth. Meanwhile, wages for most workers have stagnated, failing to keep up with the rising costs of housing, education, and healthcare. This disparity is not accidental, it is built into the system. Economic policies that prioritize corporate profits, tax cuts for the wealthy, and deregulation benefit those who already hold power. Trickle-down economics, the idea that wealth created at the top eventually benefits everyone, has been repeatedly debunked, yet it continues to justify policies that deepen inequality. The stock market, often used as a symbol of economic success, further illustrates this divide. When markets hit record highs, headlines celebrate booming economies. But who actually benefits? The vast majority of stocks are owned by the richest individuals and large institutions, meaning that economic success often translates to even greater wealth for those who need it least. Meanwhile, average workers remain stuck in cycles of debt, struggling to afford the very products and services they are expected to consume. This growing inequality is not just a financial issue, it has profound social and psychological effects. When people feel that the system is rigged against them, it breeds resentment, anxiety, and a sense of powerlessness. As economic growth continues to enrich the few at the expense of the many, it becomes clear that the pursuit of expansion is not about collective progress. It is about maintaining control. One of the great contradictions of modern economies is the way they define productivity. Technological advancements have made work more efficient than ever, yet people are working longer hours, experiencing higher stress, and struggling with burnout at unprecedented levels. This is because economic growth does not prioritize human well-being. It prioritizes output. The more productive workers become, the more is expected of them. Automation and digital tools, which should reduce workload, are instead used to increase demands. Emails, instant messaging, and remote work have blurred the boundaries between professional and personal life, making it harder for individuals to disconnect. In many industries, job security has been replaced by the gig economy, where workers are paid less, given fewer benefits, and forced to compete in an unstable labor market. This system is not designed for people to thrive. It is designed for them to produce. Companies cut costs by reducing workforce protections, pushing employees to do more with less. The glorification of hustle culture reinforces this, convincing people that working excessive hours is a sign of dedication rather than exploitation. But what happens when burnout becomes widespread? Productivity decreases, mental health deteriorates, and entire societies suffer from exhaustion. The irony is that, despite this relentless focus on productivity, economic growth does not guarantee a better quality of life. Many of the world's wealthiest nations have populations struggling with loneliness, depression, and declining life satisfaction. If progress is measured by GDP alone, then we must ask, what is being sacrificed in the name of this so-called success? If economic growth is failing to improve well-being, then what should society strive for instead? The answer lies in redefining what we consider progress. Instead of measuring success by financial expansion, we should focus on metrics that reflect true human flourishing, such as mental health, job satisfaction, access to healthcare, and environmental sustainability. Several countries have already begun experimenting with alternative models. Bhutan, for example, measures gross national happiness, GNH, instead of GDP, prioritizing cultural and ecological well-being over financial gains. Nordic countries have embraced social policies that emphasize work-life balance, universal healthcare, and education, leading to some of the highest levels of happiness in the world. These examples demonstrate that economies can function in ways that serve people rather than exploit them. However, shifting societal priorities requires dismantling entrenched power structures that profit from the current system. Governments must be held accountable for policies that widen inequality, and corporations must be challenged for placing profit above human dignity. More importantly, individuals must resist the pressure to equate self-worth with economic status. True progress is not about accumulating wealth. It is about creating a society where people can live with dignity, purpose, and genuine security. Economic growth as it stands today is a trap, one that keeps people running in circles, believing they are advancing when, in reality, they are standing still. If we truly want to move forward, we must abandon the illusion that more money and production equate to a better world. Instead, we must ask, what kind of progress actually leads to a fulfilling life? We live in the most connected era in human history. Social media allows instant communication across continents. Video calls make long-distance relationships feel closer, and the internet provides unlimited access to information. At first glance, it seems like technology has solved the fundamental human problem of isolation. However, despite this unprecedented level of connectivity, people are lonelier, more anxious, and more disconnected than ever before. This paradox lies at the heart of modern life. Instead of fostering deep relationships, digital communication often replaces them with shallow interactions. We can talk to hundreds of people in a day through likes, comments, and short messages, yet these exchanges rarely provide the emotional depth needed for real connection. Studies show that despite spending more time on social media, people feel less satisfied with their relationships. The convenience of digital interaction has replaced the effort required for meaningful human bonds, leaving many feeling empty despite being constantly connected. The way technology mediates relationships also changes how we interact. In face-to-face conversations, body language, tone, and facial expressions play a huge role in communication. These subtle but crucial elements are lost in texts and tweets, making digital interactions more prone to misunderstandings. More dangerously, this type of interaction reduces empathy. When we don't see the immediate emotional impact of our words, we become desensitized to the feelings of others. This is one reason why online discussions often turn hostile so quickly. People forget that they are speaking to real humans. The illusion of constant connection prevents people from realizing how isolated they actually are. Because technology provides a quick and easy substitute for social interaction, many never develop the deep, meaningful relationships that truly alleviate loneliness. Instead, they become trapped in a cycle of superficial engagement, always seeking validation, but never finding true fulfillment. Despite being more digitally connected than ever, people are experiencing an epidemic of loneliness. Studies from around the world indicate that feelings of social isolation have skyrocketed in the past 2 decades, with young people being among the most affected. This trend is not just a personal issue. It has profound psychological and physical consequences. Loneliness has been linked to depression, anxiety, and even a shorter lifespan, with some experts comparing its effects to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. One major reason for this crisis is that technology has altered how we perceive relationships. Social media gives the illusion that we are socially active, when, in reality, we are just scrolling through carefully curated highlights of other people's lives. Seeing others' seemingly perfect experiences can make individuals feel inadequate, reinforcing the belief that they are missing out. Instead of fostering real-world connections, people retreat further into their digital worlds, using social media as both a distraction and a coping mechanism. Another factor is the decline of communal spaces. In the past, social interaction was built into daily life. People gathered in churches, local markets, and town squares. Today, much of that has disappeared. Shopping is done online, entertainment is consumed in isolation, and remote work has replaced office environments. Technology has made it possible to live an entire life without meaningful physical interactions. Yet human beings are wired for face-to-face connection. Without it, psychological well-being deteriorates. Social media companies, of course, have little incentive to solve this problem. Their entire business model depends on users spending as much time as possible on their platforms. Features like infinite scrolling, push notifications, and algorithmic recommendations are designed to keep people hooked, ensuring that the screen replaces real-world interaction. As long as technology dictates how people connect, loneliness will remain a growing crisis. Technology has not only changed how we interact, but also how we present ourselves. Social media encourages people to curate an idealized version of their lives, filtering out flaws and imperfections. The result is a world where people constantly compare themselves to unrealistic portrayals of others, leading to dissatisfaction and a loss of authenticity. The pressure to maintain a perfect online persona means that real emotions, struggles, vulnerabilities, and failures are hidden, making it harder for people to relate to one another. This loss of authenticity has serious consequences for mental health. When people feel they must constantly perform for an audience, they become disconnected from their true selves. Instead of forming genuine relationships based on honesty and mutual understanding, they craft identities designed to impress. This is particularly harmful to younger generations who grow up believing that self-worth is tied to likes, followers, and social media validation. The impact of this artificial reality extends beyond individuals. It shapes entire societies. Public discourse is now driven by virality rather than truth, with clickbait and sensationalism replacing thoughtful discussion. Political debates become performative rather than constructive, and real-world activism is often reduced to online signaling rather than concrete action. The way technology shapes self-perception affects everything from personal relationships to democracy itself. The more people prioritize their online identities over real-world connections, the more isolated they become. Even friendships that start in person often migrate to digital spaces, where the depth of interaction gradually diminishes. If society continues down this path, human connection may become a relic of the past, replaced by carefully edited versions of reality, designed not for connection, but for consumption. If technology is making us more isolated, what can we do to reverse the trend? The first step is recognizing that digital interaction is not a substitute for real-world relationships. This means setting boundaries, limiting screen time, prioritizing face-to-face conversations, and resisting the urge to constantly check notifications. While technology has its benefits, it should be a tool for enhancing life, not replacing it. One of the most effective ways to counteract digital isolation is to actively engage in offline communities. This could mean joining local groups, participating in volunteer work, or simply making an effort to spend more time with family and friends. Face-to-face interaction strengthens social bonds in a way that no amount of texting or social media engagement can replicate. Another critical step is redefining how we measure connection. Instead of valuing quantity, how many followers, likes, or messages we receive, we should focus on quality. A deep conversation with a close friend is infinitely more valuable than hundreds of surface-level interactions on social media. Real Connection comes from vulnerability, honesty, and shared experiences, things that cannot be replaced by technology. On a broader scale, society must rethink how technology is designed and used. Social media platforms should be held accountable for their role in promoting addiction and loneliness. Schools should teach digital literacy, helping young people understand the psychological effects of social media and how to use technology in a healthy way. Employers should recognize the importance of work-life balance, ensuring that digital tools do not lead to burnout and constant availability. Technology itself is not the enemy. The problem arises when it is allowed to dictate how we live, replacing rather than enhancing human relationships. The challenge of the modern world is to find a way to harness the benefits of technology without falling into its traps. The more we recognize the dangers of digital isolation, the more we can take active steps to build a society where connection is real, deep, and meaningful. In a world flooded with information, one would assume that people have become more knowledgeable and capable of critical thinking. However, the opposite seems to be true. Despite having instant access to vast amounts of knowledge, modern society is experiencing an alarming decline in independent thought. People are more likely to accept prepackaged narratives rather than question them, react emotionally rather than analyze logically, and conform to popular opinions rather than think for themselves. This decline in critical thinking is not accidental. It is the result of a system that discourages independent thought at every level. From early education to mainstream media, people are conditioned to accept information without questioning its validity. Schools prioritize memorization over deep analysis, teaching students to regurgitate facts rather than challenge ideas. Social media algorithms reinforce existing beliefs by curating content that aligns with users' biases, trapping them in echo chambers where opposing perspectives are rarely encountered. News outlets, driven by profit rather than truth, focus on sensationalism rather than balanced reporting. The consequences of this intellectual decay are profound. Without critical thinking, people become easy targets for manipulation, whether by politicians, corporations, or ideological movements. They are more likely to be swayed by emotional appeals than logical arguments, making them susceptible to propaganda and misinformation. The rise of conspiracy theories, blind partisanship, and the inability to engage in meaningful debate all stem from this erosion of analytical thinking. The ability to think critically is what separates an informed, autonomous individual from a passive consumer of information. Without it, society becomes intellectually stagnant, unable to distinguish truth from deception. If this trend continues, the future will belong not to those who seek truth, but to those who control the narrative. One of the greatest ironies of modern education is that while it claims to promote knowledge, it often discourages genuine intellectual curiosity. Schools are designed to produce obedient workers rather than independent thinkers. The education system rewards compliance. Students who memorize and repeat information are praised, while those who question authority or challenge conventional wisdom are often discouraged. Standardized testing reinforces this approach, reducing learning to a series of multiple-choice questions rather than encouraging deep exploration of ideas. This method of education leaves little room for intellectual growth. Instead of fostering debate and discussion, schools emphasize rigid structures that prioritize efficiency over enlightenment. Creativity is stifled as students are taught that there is only one correct answer, rather than multiple perspectives that deserve analysis. Those who learn to conform thrive, while those who challenge the system struggle. This conditioning extends into adulthood, where people carry the habit of accepting information at face value rather than investigating it critically. The failure of education is evident in the way people engage with complex issues. Most individuals form opinions not based on deep research, but on surface-level information fed to them by media, influencers, or peer groups. Political debates are often reduced to repeating slogans rather than analyzing policy. Scientific discussions are oversimplified into black and white arguments rather than acknowledging nuances and uncertainties. People no longer ask, "Is this true?" but rather, Does this align with what I already believe? For a society to progress, it must encourage independent thought at all levels of education. This means fostering environments where questioning is valued, debate is encouraged, and learning is seen as an ongoing process rather than a checklist of facts to be memorized. Without such a shift, the masses will remain intellectually dependent, forever controlled by those who dictate what they should think. In an era where information is abundant, it should be easier than ever to form well-rounded perspectives. Yet paradoxically, people are becoming more intellectually rigid and polarized. A major reason for this is the way media has evolved, not to inform, but to manipulate. News organizations, social media platforms, and entertainment industries have perfected the art of shaping public perception, turning critical thinking into a rarity rather than a norm. One of the most dangerous aspects of modern media is its reduction of complex issues into simplistic, emotionally charged narratives. Rather than presenting all sides of an argument, news outlets focus on dramatic storytelling that reinforces existing biases. Headlines are designed to provoke outrage rather than encourage analysis. Nuance is sacrificed for the sake of virality, leading people to form opinions based on incomplete or misleading information. Social media amplifies this problem by creating echo chambers, digital spaces where individuals are only exposed to viewpoints that align with their existing beliefs. Algorithms prioritize engagement, meaning that controversial and emotionally charged content spreads faster than balanced, well-researched discussions. As a result, people become more entrenched in their opinions, less willing to consider alternative viewpoints, and more likely to dismiss opposing arguments without engaging with them. The consequences of this media-driven intellectual decay are evident in every aspect of society. Political discourse has turned into tribal warfare, where individuals support ideologies not based on merit, but on loyalty. Scientific discussions are overshadowed by misinformation, as sensationalized claims gain more attention than well-reasoned explanations. The ability to engage in thoughtful, productive debates is disappearing, replaced by knee-jerk reactions and shallow soundbites. If society is to reclaim intellectual integrity, it must recognize that the media is not designed to educate, but to influence. People must take responsibility for their own intellectual growth by seeking out diverse perspectives, questioning sources, and prioritizing reason over emotion. Without this effort, the public will remain mentally enslaved, easily manipulated, intellectually weak, and unable to challenge the forces that control them. The decline of critical thinking is not irreversible, but reversing it requires conscious effort at both an individual and societal level. People must actively resist the forces that seek to control their thoughts, reclaiming their intellectual autonomy through deliberate practice and self-education. The first step in restoring critical thinking is developing intellectual humility, the willingness to admit that one's beliefs might be wrong and the openness to change perspectives based on evidence. This requires actively seeking out opposing viewpoints, engaging with material that challenges pre-existing ideas, and resisting the urge to dismiss information simply because it is uncomfortable or inconvenient. Another key aspect is learning how to question sources. In an age where misinformation spreads rapidly, individuals must cultivate the habit of verifying claims rather than blindly accepting them. This means analyzing who benefits from certain narratives, understanding the biases of different information sources, and recognizing logical fallacies in arguments. People must move beyond passive consumption of information and become active investigators of truth. On a broader scale, education systems must be reformed to prioritize critical thinking over rote memorization. Schools should encourage open discussions, debate and problem-solving, teaching students how to analyze information rather than simply absorb it. Media literacy must become a core part of education, equipping individuals with the skills to navigate the digital landscape without falling prey to manipulation. Ultimately, a society that values critical thinking is a society that cannot be easily controlled. Independent thought is the foundation of progress, innovation, and true freedom. Without it, People remain intellectually stagnant, passive recipients of information rather than active seekers of knowledge. The choice is clear. Either embrace critical thinking and take control of one's own mind, or surrender to a system that thrives on ignorance. This paradox is largely the result of a world that prioritizes productivity over well-being. People are constantly bombarded with unrealistic expectations, both professionally and personally, leading to chronic stress and burnout. Social media exacerbates these issues, fostering comparison and feelings of inadequacy. Individuals are expected to be successful, attractive, socially active, and financially stable, all while maintaining an illusion of effortless perfection. The pressure to meet these impossible standards has made feelings of anxiety and self-doubt almost universal. The digital age has also fundamentally altered human interactions, replacing genuine relationships with shallow screen-based connections. Despite being more connected than ever, people feel lonelier than previous generations. Studies consistently show that strong social bonds are one of the most crucial factors in maintaining good mental health. However, as face-to-face interactions decline, so does emotional resilience. People lack the support networks that once helped them cope with life's difficulties. Additionally, modern life encourages escapism rather than healing. Instead of addressing the root causes of their distress, many turn to quick fixes: alcohol, drugs, social media, or endless entertainment to numb their emotions. This cycle of avoidance only worsens mental health in the long run, leaving individuals more fragile and dependent on external distractions. If society continues to ignore this growing crisis, the future will be filled with generations unable to cope with the very life they have been conditioned to pursue. A major, often overlooked, contributor to the mental health crisis is the economic system itself. Capitalism, while responsible for technological and material advancements, is also structured in a way that perpetuates chronic stress and insecurity. It fosters an environment where self-worth is directly tied to economic output, reducing human beings to their productivity rather than valuing them as individuals. The relentless pursuit of financial stability forces people into a cycle of work that is often unfulfilling, exhausting, and devoid of deeper meaning. The gig economy, zero-hour contracts, and corporate cultures that glorify overwork have made employment more precarious than ever. Workers feel trapped, constantly fearing layoffs or financial instability. Even those in stable jobs find themselves overburdened, expected to be available 24/7 due to the rise of remote work and digital communication. The blurred boundaries between personal and professional life have left many unable to truly disconnect and recharge. This has led to skyrocketing rates of burnout, with many individuals feeling drained and purposeless. Moreover, capitalism thrives on insecurity and dissatisfaction. Advertisers spend billions convincing people that they are not enough, that their lives will only be complete if they purchase the next product, follow the latest trend, or conform to societal beauty standards. This creates a never-ending cycle of inadequacy where people constantly chase an unattainable ideal. The result? Widespread depression and anxiety as individuals internalize the belief that they are perpetually lacking something. Additionally, mental health treatment itself has become a business. Therapy, medications, and wellness industries often prioritize profit over genuine healing. Rather than addressing root causes, pharmaceutical companies push quick-fix solutions, encouraging lifelong dependency on medication. While treatment is necessary for many, the commercialization of mental health raises the question: is the system truly invested in healing or in creating long-term customers? If people are to reclaim their mental well-being, they must recognize that the system is not designed to promote happiness. It is designed to promote consumption. True fulfillment will never be found in endless productivity or material accumulation. It requires redefining success beyond economic metrics and prioritizing human well-being over corporate profits. The Internet was once seen as a tool for empowerment, offering access to knowledge and connection. However, it has increasingly become a source of psychological distress, warping human perception and diminishing mental resilience. The digital world now dictates how people see themselves and the world around them, leading to fragmented attention spans, increased anxiety, and a deep sense of existential emptiness. Social media, in particular, is a psychological battleground. Platforms are designed to exploit human psychology, using algorithms that encourage compulsive scrolling and constant comparison. Every like, comment, or notification triggers dopamine releases, creating a cycle of addiction. This artificial form of validation conditions people to seek external approval rather than develop intrinsic self-worth. The pressure to curate a perfect online persona has made self-esteem fragile, leading to higher rates of depression, body dysmorphia, and social anxiety. Moreover, the rapid pace of online discourse has eroded deep thinking. People consume information in short bursts, jumping from one headline to the next without fully engaging with ideas. The result is an intellectual shallowness where individuals struggle to focus, reflect, or form nuanced opinions. Attention spans have significantly declined, making it difficult for people to engage in activities that require patience, such as reading, contemplation, or face-to-face conversations. The overuse of technology has also disrupted natural biological rhythms. The blue light from screens interferes with sleep cycles, reducing sleep quality and contributing to fatigue, irritability, and cognitive decline. The overstimulation of the digital world leaves individuals in a constant state of low-level anxiety, unable to relax or experience true solitude. Without moments of stillness, the mind never has a chance to process emotions properly, leading to an accumulation of unresolved stress. If mental health is to be preserved in the digital age, conscious efforts must be made to disconnect and regain control over attention. The internet should be a tool, not a master. Learning to set boundaries with technology, prioritize real-world interactions, and engage in deep thought rather than passive consumption will be essential in preventing further psychological deterioration. While modern life presents many challenges to mental health, individuals are not powerless. Reclaiming mental resilience requires intentional actions that counteract the forces designed to keep people stressed, insecure, and distracted. First, people must recognize that external validation is a trap. True self-worth cannot come from social media approval, career status, or material wealth. It must be cultivated internally. This means engaging in activities that foster genuine fulfillment, such as meaningful relationships, creative expression, and intellectual pursuits. Replacing superficial validation with deep self-awareness is one of the most effective ways to build mental resilience. Second, setting boundaries is crucial. The ability to say no to unreasonable work demands, toxic social environments, and digital distractions is essential for mental well-being. People must reclaim their time, ensuring they have moments of rest, reflection, and genuine leisure. Burnout should not be a badge of honor. It should be a warning sign that something in life needs to change. Additionally, society must stop viewing mental health as an individual failure. The current crisis is not simply the result of weak individuals, it is the byproduct of a system that prioritizes profit over human flourishing. Addressing mental health on a societal level requires rethinking how work, education, and digital engagement are structured. Companies should be held accountable for exploitative labor practices, schools should emphasize emotional intelligence, and governments should prioritize accessible mental health care. Ultimately, the mental health crisis is a symptom of a deeper societal sickness, one that values efficiency over happiness, distraction over depth, and external success over internal peace. Reversing this trend requires a cultural shift where people prioritize well-being over status, relationships over superficiality, and meaning over materialism. Only then can individuals truly break free from the mental traps of modern life. For centuries, society has glorified hard work, treating it as the ultimate virtue and the pathway to success. We are told that if we work hard enough, we will be rewarded with financial stability, personal fulfillment, and upward mobility. But what if this is just a convenient myth designed to keep people obedient, exhausted, and too distracted to question. The system. Modern capitalism has turned productivity into a form of worship. People are encouraged to sacrifice their time, health, and happiness for the sake of efficiency. They are expected to be available at all hours, constantly optimizing their routines and always striving for more output. Even rest has been commodified. Self-care is now something people schedule to maintain performance, rather than truly disconnect. This relentless pursuit of productivity has become a new kind of slavery, where individuals willingly submit to overwork because they believe it is the only way to survive. The irony is that increased productivity does not necessarily lead to a better quality of life. In many industries, technological advancements have allowed companies to generate higher profits with less labor. Yet instead of reducing work hours and improving conditions, businesses demand even more from workers. Employees are expected to be constantly reachable, working longer hours with little job security or real benefits. The concept of a 40-hour work week is outdated. Many now work 50, 60, or even 70 hours just to make ends meet. This culture of overwork is not accidental. It is a deliberate mechanism of control. When people are exhausted, they lack the time and energy to reflect, organize, or challenge the status quo. They become more dependent on their employers, more willing to accept poor conditions, and less likely to fight for systemic change. By keeping individuals constantly occupied with survival, society ensures they remain compliant, too drained to rebel, too busy to demand something better. One of the most insidious aspects of modern work culture is the rise of the gig economy. Initially marketed as a form of freedom, allowing people to work on their own terms, it has instead become a system of extreme exploitation. Companies no longer need to provide stable employment, benefits, or fair wages. Instead, they have created a disposable workforce that is constantly hustling, always underpaid, and never secure. Gig work, from rideshare drivers to food delivery to freelance labor, has redefined employment in a way that benefits corporations at the expense of workers. These jobs offer no stability, no guaranteed income, and often no protections. Workers are classified as independent contractors, which allows companies to avoid paying health insurance, retirement benefits, or even a living wage. People are left scrambling for gigs, competing with others in a brutal race to the bottom, where the lowest bidder gets the job. The psychological toll of this instability is devastating. Unlike traditional jobs, gig workers live with constant financial anxiety, unsure if they will make enough money each month to survive. They must work longer hours, often juggling multiple jobs, just to maintain a basic standard of living. The pressure to always be working, because there is no safety net, leads to chronic stress, burnout, and even physical health deterioration. Worse still, the illusion of flexibility keeps people trapped. They are told they are their own bosses, free to work whenever they want. But in reality, the algorithm dictates their availability. Workers must be online at peak hours, accept as many gigs as possible, and constantly chase the next opportunity. There is no real autonomy, only the illusion of choice. In this way, the gig economy mirrors the conditions of historical slavery, a system where workers are technically free but are given no real alternative but to serve the interests of those in power. While gig workers face extreme financial instability, even those in traditional corporate jobs are not immune from modern exploitation. The idea of a stable career has become increasingly rare, replaced by a culture of endless performance metrics, unpaid overtime, and unattainable expectations. White-collar professionals, once seen as having prestigious, well-paying jobs, are now facing the same exhaustion and insecurity as blue-collar workers. Corporate culture has mastered the art of extracting maximum labor while maintaining the illusion of prestige. Employees are given fancy titles, open concept offices, and perks like free coffee or gym memberships. But beneath the surface, they are overworked, micromanaged, and constantly evaluated. Performance reviews, sales targets, and key performance indicators, KPIs, create an environment of relentless pressure. Workers are not valued as individuals. They are statistics, measured solely by how much they can produce. One of the most sinister aspects of corporate exploitation is the expectation of unpaid labor. Many employees work beyond their official hours, answering emails at night, attending meetings on weekends, and constantly staying plugged into their work. The fear of being replaced or left behind forces them to comply, sacrificing personal time for the sake of job security. The work-from-home revolution, initially seen as a way to improve work-life balance, has only worsened this issue. Now, work invades every aspect of life, blurring the boundaries between professional and personal time. The psychological consequences are severe. Chronic stress, anxiety, and even depression are common among corporate workers. Many feel trapped, too tired to seek alternatives, but unable to endure the ongoing pressure. The modern workplace has become a machine that extracts productivity until people are completely drained. Then, when they burn out, they are discarded and replaced by fresh employees, ready to be exploited in the same way. If modern work culture is designed to keep people exhausted and compliant, how can individuals break free? The first step is recognizing that productivity is not an inherent virtue. It is a tool that benefits those in power. Working harder does not necessarily lead to success or happiness. In fact, in many cases, it only leads to exploitation. The key is to redefine what work should mean on a personal level. One of the most radical acts of rebellion is to reject the notion that life must revolve around labor. Instead of chasing career advancement at the cost of personal well-being, individuals must prioritize their own health, relationships, and intellectual growth. This might mean seeking alternative ways of earning income, such as starting a small business, investing in passive income streams, or simply working less and living with fewer material possessions. Collective action is also crucial. Throughout history, labor movements have fought for workers' rights, reducing exploitation and improving conditions. If people recognize that they are being systematically drained, they can organize against it. Demanding fair wages, humane work hours, and job security should not be seen as radical. It should be seen as necessary. But as long as individuals remain isolated and overworked, they will be unable to fight back. Finally, people must challenge the idea that their worth is tied to their economic output. A fulfilling life is not one spent endlessly working. It is one spent in pursuit of meaning, creativity, and genuine human connection. By shifting priorities away from mindless productivity and toward deeper fulfillment, individuals can escape the modern cycle of work-based enslavement and reclaim their lives. Modern politics has become indistinguishable from entertainment. Elections are treated like reality TV shows, debates resemble wrestling matches, and politicians behave like social media influencers, more concerned with their public image than with actual governance. This transformation is not accidental. It serves a critical function, keeping the masses distracted and pacified while those in power continue to operate unchecked. The political arena is carefully designed to manufacture emotional engagement rather than meaningful change. Leaders are cast as heroes or villains, depending on one's ideological leanings, and the media ensures that every controversy, scandal, and soundbite is amplified for maximum outrage. Instead of discussing substantive policies, news networks focus on personal drama, viral moments, and rhetorical battles. This shift keeps the public emotionally invested in political theater, while preventing deep analysis of systemic issues. The result is a population that feels politically active simply by engaging in the spectacle, watching debates, sharing articles, or arguing online, without taking any action that would genuinely shift power dynamics. People are conditioned to see politics as something to be consumed, rather than something to be changed. This illusion of participation ensures that the system remains intact, because real power never resides in these performances. It operates behind the scenes, untouched by public opinion. By keeping the political discourse shallow and sensationalized, the ruling class prevents collective mobilization. The goal is not to educate or empower citizens, but to keep them entertained, divided, and ultimately powerless. While the masses are fixated on the latest scandal, Corporate elites, lobbyists, and bureaucratic institutions quietly shape policies that serve their interests. The real game is being played behind closed doors, and the public, despite feeling engaged, is merely an audience watching a performance with no real impact on the outcome. One of the greatest tricks of modern politics is the illusion of choice. Every election cycle, people are presented with two opposing candidates, each claiming to represent vastly different visions for the future. The media amplifies their supposed differences, creating the impression that the stakes are life or death. Yet despite these apparent contrasts, the most critical aspects of governance, economic policy, military interventions, corporate influence, remain unchanged regardless of who is in power. This is because mainstream political parties, despite their ideological branding, ultimately serve the same financial and corporate interests. Campaigns are funded by billionaires, lobbyists, and multinational corporations that expect returns on their investments. No matter who wins, policies continue to favor big business, Wall Street, and the military-industrial complex. Issues such as wealth inequality, mass surveillance, environmental destruction, and endless war remain untouched because those in power benefit from maintaining the status quo. This controlled opposition ensures that real systemic change is impossible. People are made to believe that their vote is their most powerful tool, but in reality, they are merely choosing between two variations of the same system. This dynamic keeps citizens locked in a cycle of hope and disillusionment. Every new leader promises reform, but once in office, they continue the same policies as their predecessors, disappointing their supporters, but maintaining the illusion that the next election will finally bring change. The anger and dissatisfaction this creates are carefully redirected. Instead of questioning the system itself, people are encouraged to blame the other side, left versus right, conservatives versus liberals, nationalists versus globalists. This division is deliberately stoked to prevent unity among the working class, ensuring that the public fights among itself, while the true power holders remain unchallenged. The more people believe they are engaged in a meaningful battle through partisan politics, the less likely they are to seek real systemic transformation. In an age of constant information overload, outrage has become one of the most effective tools for political manipulation. Every day, people are bombarded with news stories designed to provoke anger, fear, or moral indignation. Whether it's a controversial statement from a politician, a cultural debate over language and representation, or a viral clip taken out of context, the goal is always the same: keep the public emotionally engaged and distracted. Identity politics, while originally a movement for genuine social justice, has been weaponized to divide and control. Rather than uniting people around shared economic struggles or structural injustices, modern political discourse focuses on surface-level identity conflicts, race, gender, religion, and nationality, turning them into battlefields of endless culture wars. This strategy ensures that people remain too divided to challenge the underlying power structures that exploit everyone equally. The corporate media plays a crucial role in this manipulation. By amplifying emotionally charged stories, they keep people in a state of perpetual outrage, unable to think critically or organize effectively. People are conditioned to see those with different political opinions as enemies rather than as potential allies in a broader struggle against economic exploitation and corruption. This prevents the formation of mass movements that could demand real change. Meanwhile, the actual decision-makers, the billionaires, policymakers, and unelected bureaucrats who shape laws and control wealth, remain untouched by these debates. They continue to profit, while the public is locked in an endless cycle of cultural conflict, believing that if they just win the next ideological battle, things will improve. But as long as the focus remains on individual identity struggles rather than systemic power imbalances, the ruling elite has nothing to fear. The outrage machine ensures that people are too busy fighting each other to recognize their common enemy. If modern politics is designed to keep people distracted and divided, then escaping this trap requires a complete shift in perspective. The first step is recognizing that mainstream political discourse is not designed to serve the public. It is designed to pacify, entertain, and manipulate. True political engagement does not come from watching debates, sharing news articles, or voting every few years. It comes from grassroots organization, economic empowerment, and collective action. One of the most radical actions individuals can take is to disengage from the spectacle and focus on real-world impact. This means shifting attention away from media-driven outrage and towards tangible community-building efforts, supporting local businesses, forming worker cooperatives, educating oneself about alternative economic models, and resisting consumer culture. Real power is not in the hands of elected officials, but in the ability of people to create parallel structures that reduce dependence on the existing system. Understanding who truly holds power is also crucial. Instead of seeing the opposing political party as the enemy, people must recognize that their real adversaries are the billionaires, corporations, and institutions that control wealth, resources, and policy decisions. True change does not come from replacing one politician with another, but from fundamentally altering the structures that concentrate power in the hands of the few. Finally, rejecting the culture of passive political consumption is essential. Instead of treating politics like a spectator sport, individuals must actively participate in shaping their communities, holding power accountable, and demanding systemic reform. The more people wake up to the reality that politics is not about entertainment, but about power and control, the more difficult it becomes for those in charge to maintain their grip on society. The political machine thrives on distraction, division, and disengagement. Breaking free requires rejecting the illusion, uniting beyond ideological labels, and focusing on structural change rather than surface-level debates. Only then can real progress begin. Modern society is built on the idea that happiness can be bought. From the moment we wake up, we are bombarded with advertisements telling us that the key to fulfillment lies in owning the right products, driving the right car, wearing the right clothes, or living in the right neighborhood. This message is deeply embedded in our culture, shaping our desires, self-worth, and even our definition of success. Consumerism is not just about buying things. It is a belief system that equates material wealth with personal happiness. This ideology is so powerful that it has reshaped our understanding of human fulfillment. Instead of finding meaning in relationships, creativity, personal growth, or community, we are encouraged to seek it in possessions. The logic is simple. If you feel dissatisfied, you just haven't bought the right thing yet. But this is a trap. Every new purchase provides only a temporary boost of satisfaction, known as the hedonic treadmill, a psychological phenomenon where material gains quickly lose their emotional impact, forcing us to seek out the next purchase. Corporations understand this cycle perfectly. They invest billions into psychological research to manipulate consumer behavior, ensuring that people remain in a state of perpetual dissatisfaction. Social media has only amplified this effect, creating an environment where people constantly compare their lives to unrealistic portrayals of wealth and success. The result is a society where people are overworked, financially strained, and emotionally unfulfilled, all while believing that just one more purchase will finally bring them happiness. The promise of happiness through consumption is a carefully designed illusion. It ensures that people remain financially dependent, emotionally unfulfilled, and forever chasing an unattainable dream. The more we buy into this ideology, the more we surrender our autonomy, our values, and our ability to define happiness on our own terms. Breaking free from this cycle requires a fundamental shift in perspective, one that challenges the very foundation of what we believe brings joy and fulfillment. Despite what advertisers claim, research consistently shows that material wealth has a limited impact on happiness. Studies in psychology and economics reveal that after a certain point, increased income and possessions do not significantly improve life satisfaction. The Easterlin paradox, for example, demonstrates that while wealthier individuals are generally happier than those in poverty, rising national incomes do not correlate with increased happiness over time. Once basic needs are met, more money does not equate to more joy. This is because happiness is largely influenced by factors that money cannot buy: strong relationships, meaningful work, a sense of purpose, and personal autonomy. While buying a new car or the latest smartphone might provide a brief dopamine boost, these effects are temporary. Humans quickly adapt to new possessions, and what once seemed exciting soon becomes ordinary. This adaptation forces people to seek out new purchases to regain that fleeting sense of satisfaction, trapping them in a never-ending cycle of consumption. Neurological studies also reveal that consumer culture hijacks our brain's reward system. Advertisers use dopamine-driven tactics to create artificial desires, convincing us that we need things we never even thought about before. The rise of retail therapy is a perfect example. People turn to shopping as a coping mechanism for stress, boredom, or insecurity. Yet this approach only masks deeper emotional voids, leading to compulsive spending, financial stress, and ultimately, more unhappiness. The key takeaway is that consumerism exploits human psychology rather than fulfilling genuine needs. It convinces people that external possessions will solve internal problems. But true happiness comes from within, through personal development, meaningful relationships, and a life aligned with one's values. The more we understand this, the less power materialism has over us. Consumerism is not a natural human tendency. It was carefully engineered by corporations and governments to fuel economic growth. Before the 20th century, people purchased goods primarily for necessity, and excessive consumption was often viewed as wasteful or even immoral. However, after World War II, a radical shift occurred. Economists and policymakers realized that, for capitalism to thrive, people needed to become perpetual consumers. The economy could not sustain itself if people only bought what they needed, so industries worked to manufacture demand. Advertising became a powerful tool for reshaping cultural values. Corporations invested in psychological manipulation, using techniques from Edward Bernays, Sigmund Freud's nephew, to link products with emotions, identity, and social status. Owning certain brands became a symbol of success, beauty, and happiness. The goal was not just to sell products, but to create lifelong consumers who would constantly seek validation through purchases. Planned obsolescence further deepened this dependency. Companies intentionally designed products with limited lifespans, forcing people to replace them frequently. From smartphones to fashion, industries ensure that items become outdated or non-functional within a short period. Even software companies manipulate consumers by making older models incompatible with new updates. The result? People are trapped in an endless cycle of spending, upgrading, and replacing, believing they are making independent choices while actually following a carefully scripted playbook. Debt became another tool of control. Credit cards, easy financing, and buy now, pay later schemes make people believe they can afford more than they actually can. Yet this financial illusion keeps them enslaved to jobs they dislike, working just to pay off debts accumulated through unnecessary purchases. The system is designed to ensure that people remain consumers first and free individuals second. Recognizing this manipulation is the first step in breaking free from the cycle. Breaking free from the consumerist trap requires a radical shift in mindset. It means rejecting the idea that happiness is something to be bought and instead embracing a life centered around meaning, purpose, and personal growth. This does not mean rejecting all material possessions, but rather redefining their role in our lives, viewing them as tools rather than sources of identity and fulfillment. One of the most powerful ways to escape consumer culture is through minimalism. Minimalism is not just about owning fewer things, it is about focusing on what truly matters. By prioritizing experiences over possessions, relationships over status symbols, and self-improvement over material accumulation, people can create lives that are richer, freer, and more fulfilling. The less we rely on external validation through purchases, the more control we gain over our happiness. Financial independence is another key aspect. Avoiding unnecessary debt, learning to live below one's means, and prioritizing financial freedom over luxury consumption can break the chains of consumerism. When people stop defining success by how much they own and start valuing autonomy, they regain power over their lives. Instead of working endlessly to afford more things, they can design a life based on their true desires, whether that means traveling, pursuing a passion, or simply having more time for family and creativity. Perhaps the most important step is questioning the narratives fed by corporations and media. Every advertisement, social media influencer, and cultural trend pushing excessive consumption should be met with skepticism, asking, "Do I really need this? Will this truly make me happier?" Can prevent impulsive spending and shift focus toward genuine fulfillment. In the end, escaping consumerism is not just a financial decision, it is a philosophical one. It is about reclaiming agency over our desires, redefining success, and understanding that happiness is not something that can be purchased, but something that must. In modern society, we are constantly told that we are working toward a better, more sustainable future. From green energy initiatives to recycling campaigns, the narrative of environmental progress is omnipresent. Yet, when we examine the true scope of the situation, it becomes clear that these efforts are merely surface-level solutions that do not address the deeper systemic issues driving environmental destruction. The truth is, modern society is not truly trying to save the planet. It is merely attempting to sustain the systems that are destroying it. The fundamental problem lies in the concept of sustainable growth, a contradiction in terms. The idea that we can continue to grow economically, socially, and technologically, while maintaining the planet's ecological balance is inherently flawed. Economic growth depends on constant consumption, resource extraction, and waste generation. These activities are, by definition, unsustainable. Yet politicians, corporations, and institutions continue to push the narrative that we can have both endless growth and a thriving planet. This narrative is reinforced by the same industries that profit from environmental destruction. Fossil fuel companies, agricultural conglomerates, and mining corporations are all too eager to support greenwashing initiatives, efforts to appear environmentally friendly, without making any significant changes to their operations. These companies have a vested interest in maintaining the status quo, as it allows them to continue reaping profits while avoiding the costly responsibility of truly sustainable practices. The result is a vicious cycle. Environmental degradation is masked by superficial green policies that do nothing to address the root causes of the crisis. The idea of sustainable growth is simply a distraction, a comforting lie designed to placate the public while preserving the profit-driven systems that are responsible for the destruction of our planet. Until we confront the reality that true sustainability requires a fundamental restructuring of our economic and social systems, we will continue to be trapped in this illusion. Greenwashing has become a key tool for corporations seeking to maintain their image as responsible corporate citizens while continuing to exploit the environment for profit. The term greenwashing refers to the practice of presenting a misleading or deceptive image of environmental responsibility, often through marketing and branding. Instead of making genuine, impactful changes to their operations, corporations spend vast sums on advertising campaigns that suggest they are environmentally conscious. One of the most egregious examples of greenwashing is found in the fossil fuel industry. Companies like ExxonMobil and Shell have invested heavily in marketing themselves as champions of green energy, despite their core business being the extraction and sale of fossil fuels. They fund public relations campaigns promoting renewable energy technologies, but in reality they continue to expand their operations in ways that perpetuate environmental harm. These corporations are experts at manipulating public perception, distracting us with their green initiatives, while their business practices remain unchanged. Greenwashing is not limited to oil giants. In the fashion, food, and technology sectors, companies are increasingly adopting sustainable labels for their products without any meaningful change in their supply chains. For example, many fast fashion brands now promote their use of eco-friendly materials, even though they continue to rely on cheap labor and environmentally damaging production processes. Similarly, tech companies market their products as sustainable or energy efficient, yet their products often have short lifespans and are not designed for recycling or reuse. The problem with greenwashing is that it creates a false sense of progress, making it seem as though we are moving in the right direction when, in reality, we are simply being sold an illusion. It diverts attention away from the real structural changes needed to address the environmental crisis. While individual consumers may feel empowered by their eco-friendly purchases, they are, in fact, perpetuating the same systems of exploitation and environmental harm. To truly save the planet, we need to move beyond the surface-level solutions of greenwashing and demand systemic, transparent and meaningful changes from corporations and governments alike. The capitalist economic system is one of the primary drivers of environmental destruction. Capitalism, by its very nature, prioritizes profit over ecological health, and its need for constant growth leads to the overexploitation of natural resources. In this system, environmental costs are externalized, meaning the true ecological impact of production, consumption, and waste is not reflected in the price of goods and services. This allows companies to continue operating in ways that are environmentally unsustainable, without bearing the full costs of their actions. The pursuit of profit encourages the extraction of finite resources at an unsustainable rate. From mining operations that devastate landscapes to deforestation driven by agricultural expansion, capitalism drives industries to exploit the Earth's resources as if they are infinite. The environmental toll of this system is staggering, yet the costs are often hidden from the public through complex supply chains and government subsidies that protect corporations from taking responsibility. Moreover, capitalism thrives on consumerism, another factor that drives environmental degradation. The more people consume, the more companies can profit, and the more resources are drained from the planet. The advertising industry plays a crucial role in this by convincing people that they need more and more products, creating a cycle of excessive consumption that contributes to pollution, waste, and the depletion of natural resources. The economic system's disregard for the environment is deeply entrenched, and without a fundamental shift in how we approach production, consumption, and wealth distribution, the environmental crisis will only worsen. True sustainability cannot be achieved within a capitalist framework, as the drive for profit inherently contradicts the principles of ecological balance and long-term environmental stewardship. The path to saving the planet lies in rethinking the very systems that govern our world. This means embracing a new economic model, one that places sustainability, equity, and ecological health at the forefront of decision-making. Rather than relying on growth-driven capitalism, we need to shift toward a system based on the principles of sufficiency and circularity. A circular economy is one that focuses on reducing waste, reusing resources, and recycling materials to keep products in use for as long as possible. Instead of the traditional model of take, make, dispose, a circular economy prioritizes the design of products that can be easily repaired, repurposed, or recycled. This would reduce the pressure on natural resources and help mitigate environmental degradation. At the same time, we must challenge the underlying assumptions of consumerism, redefining progress to focus on quality of life, community well-being, and ecological health, rather than GDP growth or material accumulation, is essential for creating a truly sustainable society. This shift requires political will, societal buy-in, and a collective effort to redesign industries, education systems, and cultural norms. Ultimately, saving the planet is not just about technological innovation or green policies. It is about reshaping the very foundations of our economic, social, and cultural systems. By moving away from the destructive logic of endless growth and embracing a more holistic, sustainable approach, we can begin to reverse the environmental damage we have caused and build a future where people and the planet can thrive together. True, progress cannot be measured solely by the accumulation of wealth, technological advancements, or even the size of a nation's economy. These traditional markers of success have led us to a place where the planet is suffering, mental health is on the decline, and meaningful human connection is eroding. Real progress, therefore, requires a fundamental shift in how we define what it means to improve society. At the core of this redefinition lies the need to prioritize values that are not based on consumption. Economic growth, while often seen as a sign of success, is an incomplete measure of human well-being. True progress means focusing on what genuinely improves quality of life, mental and physical health, education, community bonds, and environmental sustainability. These aspects of human life cannot be reduced to numbers or trends. They require a commitment to a holistic understanding of what it means to live a fulfilled, ethical, and sustainable life. This shift also requires a deep questioning of the underlying assumptions of capitalist growth. If progress is defined merely by the expansion of markets and industries, we will forever be locked in a cycle of destruction. The relentless pursuit of more goods, more services, and more profits is a treadmill that never leads to satisfaction. Progress, in its truest sense, is about reducing dependence on material goods and embracing the intangible qualities of life that bring true fulfillment: relationships, self-expression, creativity, and a deep connection with the natural world. By expanding our definition of progress, we allow space for alternative models of success to emerge. These models are less focused on competition and accumulation, and more centered around cooperation, sustainability, and well-being. Only by embracing this broader understanding of progress can we create a future where both humans and the planet can flourish. To achieve real progress, we must not only rethink individual values, but also restructure societal systems that prioritize short-term profits over long-term well-being. Building a truly sustainable and just society requires a comprehensive approach that addresses economic inequality, environmental destruction, and social isolation. These issues are interwoven, and tackling one without the others will not bring meaningful change. A sustainable society is one that fosters equity and social justice, while also ensuring that resources are used in a way that protects the environment for future generations. This means creating economies that are not based on exploitation, but on fairness, where wealth is more evenly distributed, and everyone has access to basic needs such as healthcare, education, and a clean environment. In such a society, work would be reframed as a way to contribute to the collective good, not just a means to survive. People would be empowered to pursue passions and meaningful projects rather than being trapped in jobs that drain their mental and physical health. As we create communities where people's needs are met, we remove the structural forces that perpetuate inequality and environmental harm. On an environmental level, real progress involves moving away from industries that destroy ecosystems and towards renewable, regenerative practices. This would include the widespread adoption of green technologies, a circular economy, and a commitment to reducing waste and pollution. The idea is not just to slow down the harm we are causing to the planet, but to actively restore and regenerate ecosystems that have been damaged by human activity. Education plays a crucial role in shaping the society we want to create. For true progress to occur, education systems must be reimagined to foster critical thinking, creativity, empathy, and ecological awareness. Traditional education, with its focus on rote memorization and standardized testing, often stifles the very skills needed to address the complex challenges of today's world. A true education for the future would empower individuals to think critically about the systems they are a part of, to question the status quo, and to envision new ways of organizing society. It would encourage students to understand the interconnectedness of social, environmental, and economic issues, and to develop the skills needed to address them. This includes teaching about sustainability, ethics, social justice, and the importance of community, as well as developing practical skills that enable people to live more sustainably and harmoniously. Education should also focus on emotional and psychological intelligence. Understanding how to navigate emotions, relationships, and mental health is essential to creating a society that prioritizes well-being. As the mental health crisis continues, to grow, education must include tools for emotional resilience and self-awareness, so individuals are equipped to face the challenges of modern life. Ultimately, education should aim to create individuals who are not just skilled workers, but who are active, engaged citizens with a sense of responsibility toward others and the planet. This shift in educational priorities will ensure that future generations are equipped to tackle the challenges ahead, and to lead in a way that promotes collective well-being. Real progress will not come through isolated individual efforts or through waiting for governments and corporations to solve the world's problems. It will require a collective awakening and a unified will to demand change. Societies need to come together to challenge the systems that perpetuate inequality, environmental destruction, and the erosion of human connection. This is not a battle that can be fought by a few activists or intellectuals. It must be a movement that encompasses people from all walks of life, from all backgrounds, united by a shared vision of a better, more just world. Collective action is the driving force behind any significant societal change, and it is through solidarity that we can begin to shift the dominant narratives that currently define progress. In practical terms, this means engaging in grassroots organizing, demanding accountability from institutions, and supporting policies that prioritize human and planetary health over profit. It also means taking personal responsibility for our choices, from the products we buy to the way we live our lives, and fostering communities that support and empower one another. Through collective action and sustained will, we can change the systems that currently enslave us to consumerism, inequality, and environmental destruction. Real progress is possible, but only if we are willing to reimagine what that progress looks like and take bold steps to make it a reality. In conclusion, the illusion of progress that has been sold to us for decades has led us to a point where the very systems we've created to improve our lives are now holding us back. The endless pursuit of economic growth, technological innovation, and consumerism has not brought us closer to happiness, fulfillment, or sustainability. Instead, it has created a world where inequality, mental health crises, and environmental degradation are more prevalent than ever. But true progress is still within our reach. It requires a paradigm shift, moving beyond the shallow metrics of material wealth and embracing a more holistic vision of what it means to live a meaningful life. Progress, in its truest sense, is about fostering human connection, safeguarding the environment, and creating equitable systems that prioritize well-being over profits. We must start by rethinking our values and redefining what success truly means. It's not about accumulating more stuff or achieving more economic growth. It's about creating a society where people thrive, mentally, physically, and emotionally, and where the planet can sustain future generations. This won't be easy, and it won't happen overnight. But through collective action, radical changes in our educational systems, and a deep commitment to sustainability and social justice, we can create a future where real progress is not just a distant ideal, but a lived reality. The question is, are we ready to challenge the illusion of progress and make the necessary changes to build a better world? The answer lies in our collective will to take action. Let's begin today, together, and move toward a future that reflects our highest values, not our greatest fears.